actually helping me? Are they around us, or is that true? What's the deal?
Absolutely. The way I see it is that both the light and the dark side have those assigned to us. And it's been that way for a long time. That was also part of the plan. So we have those of our ministering angels. In the majority of the cases that I know of, they are family members that have passed on. There are certain eternal laws that go with that I don't fully understand. I just know that they do. I know that from what I experienced and what I, even for years, and then obviously I saw that on the other side, and then have experienced, in the last 10 plus years. The family is very, very important. It's a central unit. It's the eternal unit and the way that the Lord has designed it. And so there's a lot that goes into that. If you're looking at things like family and temple history work and being able to help those on the other side of the veil progress, those who have passed on more often than we even realize, all the time are intervening on our behalf and protecting us and all. There's all kinds of amazing stories that go with that. I don't know if that answers your question other than yes, you're right. And there's a lot more that goes into that when you're talking about how we help them and how they help us. We're in it together.
That does answer it, and I appreciate that. It just seems like that's so logical with how much we place emphasis on the family that they are helping. They're the ones that are actually doing the legwork on the other side to help us, and boy, that makes sense.
And for whatever reason, I'm supposed to share this with you. An interesting thing is that most of our family members want to be helpful. There are some, maybe in some of our family lines, that made choices at some point in time that were not necessarily of the greatest
decisions.
Maybe. And they can also interfere sometimes, because those who are of the light and are following the Lord, we all still have our agency on the other side as well. They will only come and visit us or say certain things to us when they are given directive to do that or permission from Father in Heaven to do that. There are those still that are rebellious that will still come on their own. So, things about familiar spirits and things that we hear about in the scriptures, so important to learn how to discern who it is that's talking to us or the messages we're getting. And the other thing that comes to my mind is, interestingly enough, with this message that I'm giving, and I've had several members of my family, distant relatives, that are on the other side, and it's been interesting for me because some of them are just rejoicing and they're so excited because it's at this point in time for me and my plan that they are like, oh yay, she's everything from oh yay, it's time for St. George. And then this week earlier there were some that were like, oh no, she's going to St. George. And so it's interesting to me that when we pass on, we are the same people.
Right.
We're still the same people, and we can change. Right. But anyway, I don't know why I'm supposed to tell you that, but
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, a lot to think about. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the call. We're doing an after show, a mini show. We've never done this before, but we're recording this, and we're going to be talking with Julie just a little bit and maybe getting into some specifics so that we can further understand what she saw and her vision. That it's author Julie Rowe. The book is A Greater Tomorrow, and the time is now. And this is only going to be available on our podcast. And that was a call talking about, do we get are our relatives a part of this, those that have passed on and so forth? And the answer, I think, is yes, a resounding yes. Julie, was specifically in regards to the future, are there some things that would help us maybe right now that we could be doing that would counterbalance having to go through these very heavy circumstances coming up soon, or how do we get through that? What can we?
The first thing that keeps coming to my mind is because the Spirit keeps telling me I need to even be better about this, and that is we need to get back to some basics of obeying the basic 10 Commandments.
True.
For those that are not of the Christian faith, it gives us an opportunity to go to the higher power and ask the Lord for divine truth. All truth is circumscribed into one eternal whole. And so whatever faith we are, and if you're talking within the Christian religions, whatever denomination we are, all truth comes through the Holy Ghost, through the divine. And so whether it's something I'm saying on here, if you're talking about a place of refuge, or foreign troops, or anything, or
right.
did who is this Julie Rowe, and did she really have this, or who is this person? What's her motive? I've had some interesting feedback
on what your motive is.
The amazing thing is the Lord prepares us, and it's like everything that the dark side's been trying to tell me people were going to say and do to me, It's happening. They're going to tell you you're crazy.
Proof.
They're
Proof
going to accuse you of being a fraud. They're going to say priestcraft. They're going to this. They're going to that. And I'm like, and instead of it freaking me out, it's like, oh wow, that's validating.
Because you were warned that this would happen, and it's happening.
Right.
So.
Which is part of the reason I was like, oh, it's coming. But because of those experiences, it's no different. We're all the same in that. With that plan, if we just kind of wake up and we go, wow, I had no idea that 10 years ago when X, Y, and Z happened to me, it would give me the clarity I need today to know what to do right now.
Right. And
you know what I mean? Like at the time we didn't understand it, but it could take 10 years and you go,
right.
Whoa, I had no idea that's what that meant.
I think one of the biggest things that I got from your books was the fact that people are so asleep. And that we're not seeing these things that the government's doing. We're not seeing these things that could be happening. And like I remember when you referenced the UN troops coming in maybe after some natural disasters, and that we thought they were there to help, and that people were sort of blinded to that, and they thought, oh, they're here to help us, so naively, and that possibly there was maybe a turning there of events. Is it important to you right now? I would imagine to get people to wake up to see our world, and this is a political talk show, so to see our government, our world in the context of what we should be seeing it, so that when things happen, we go, wait a minute, there's more to this than what meets the eye? Is that important for you?
Well, they'll lull us to sleep. That's a tactic they use. It's called a sleeping potion. Let's use these mechanisms, these devices. Again, everything's spiritually created before physically created.
Right.
So if they have a certain weapon that has been used on the planet, it's been used before and it is being used in a different realm. And so if you're talking, why are people asleep? Why aren't they waking up? How can they not see it? Well, in some cases, maybe they're not supposed to, but there are many cases where it's because somebody's put blinders on them, literally, and they've kind of done something to keep them from able to see that.
Right.
And at what point in time in the plan is it time for them to wake up and kind of for it to trigger? Speaking of triggers and all kinds of markers in the road, and there's so much that goes into that I don't even fully understand, but I'm waking up more and more every day going, wow.
Right.
Wow. Like, okay, so I was told this all these years ago, and now this is what's happening in the Middle East.
Wow.
Or this false flag event that I was shown happened.
Right.
So if those things happened, then this other stuff I was shown is going to happen too. Wow.
One of the things, Kate, that encourages me is that I'm aware that the Lord is aware of what's going on. And he has a hand in what's going on also.
I
It's
agree.
not just like us waking up and trying to get our guns and food
and trying to do it on our own. Yeah.
We have to realize that he's working behind the scenes too.
Well, and the message is there's
He's front and center.
There's not enough guns. You have to have faith. There's so much to the faith aspect,
Yeah.
and that's why the fear.
It's all about faith and trust.
When people are
Right.
prepping, they're fearing and they're stockpiling guns, and I'm thinking there isn't the amount of guns in the world that are going to help in that period of time, right?
No.
Dave?
No.
There isn't. And the scriptures tell us that those that are preparing a plot against us will fall into their own pit.
Absolutely.
And they'll fall into that. And but he's doing little things too. If I can just give an example, Whitaker Chambers, when he exposed Alger Hiss of being a communist spy in the State Department, and he was going along with him at all times. And then all of a sudden one day he's feeding his little daughter, and all of a sudden boom, he says, it just came to me.
Came to him.
She cannot be an accident. And then all of a sudden he changes. Well, that's inspiration from the Lord, and it just changes the whole course of history.
We have a caller.
Little
Do you
things.
mind taking
That's
a call?
fine.
Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. We're doing the mini show.
Yes, we're trying to find out how to do the podcast. We don't know how to get on, on the
Oh,
internet.
okay.
for
And
that.
I'll cancel this out of the show. KZNU, all you have to do is go to the App Store, and it's free, and you get KZNU. And when you get it says just look up KZNU Fox News.
All right.
Okay.
And it'll tell us how to do the
Yep,
podcast.
it'll pop right on your phone, and then you can look at podcasts.
Thank you so much.
You betcha. Thank
Bye.
you. All right, I'll cut that out. Okay, so I agree. I agree in that faith is going to be huge, and that seeing things is very important to see it for what it is.
We don't know what he's doing. The Lord's doing behind the scenes, but he's changing his mind. He's causing just little things. That,
Right.
He's
like you
He's
said,
in control.
incredible
like you said,
orchestrator.
Julie, he's not controlling, but he is in control.
Yes, and he can orchestrate, and it's like literally, I get visuals of this where it's, okay, it's time, at this point in time in the plan, it's time to bring in so-and-so. All right, now let's okay. And they will, we've got billions of those who have gone before us and those who will yet come who don't have a veil, who are being utilized in his service, that he sends all over the place. And that's one of the ways.
Reinforcements. There's a lot of
yes,
help out
that's
there.
one of the ways. And those that be with us are far greater than those that be with them.
Ah, gotcha.
Although those that are not on the Lord's side, in whatever realm, they're really good at scare tactics. They're really good at theatrics. They're really good at manipulating and lying and deceiving and fear-mongering. They're really good at, every form of deceit. And they're pulling out the big guns now. We haven't seen anything yet. They're holding back a lot of their weapons. But the thing is they know it, but they really don't even know how powerful the Lord really is. Gotcha. Because they are so completely blinded by the darkness and the lies they've been told.
That's a good point.
Anybody who's ever known somebody that, they're like a pathological liar, well, part of what goes into that is they lie so much that they believe their own lies. And that's the reality of a leader of the opposition.
And they almost believe their own power.
Yes. And they're so blinded by their own power and, all that. So the adversary will say to himself and to everyone else in his service, don't trust them because you don't want to rely on Christ to save you because then you're not going to get to go back to Father in heaven. But I can guarantee you'll be able to make it if you do it my way. Right?
Okay.
He'll still tell that. That's one tactic. Or he'll say, whatever it is, they've known us a long time too. Whatever it is that is our area of weakness, that can also be our strength.
Right.
So whatever spiritual gifts we have, they could say, okay, well, we know this guy has a spiritual gift of knowledge. We also know maybe he struggles with a pride issue. So he will go to them or send a messenger to them and say, let me tell you what I can teach you. Have I got some knowledge for you?
Wow.
And if we don't keep our pride in check, we'll start listening to the wrong voices.
I was going to say that because with the government, we talk about the government all the time. We talk about false flags all the time. We talk about all of these things that are happening that sort of blind people. But, as far as the government goes, I think that really the ambition right now is government will save you. Government will protect you. Whatever we tell you is the truth. You don't need a higher power. You don't need anyone else. We are
That's
it.
the exact
we are
same thing we were told.
Yes. And I think that's why people have a hard time, honestly, with false flags and all of these things happening. They don't want to believe that they could be lied to. They don't want to believe that they aren't in control because it destabilizes everything that right? And
cognitive dissonance.
Yes, and it might mean that you do need to seek God, that you do need to seek those things. And I'm sure you've seen that because I'm sure you've seen maybe things to come, false flags to come, or things that have happened that have panned out that probably have scared you a little bit like, wow, that happened. Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you that I lots and lots of divine intervention to be able to put things in context, in their proper context of the things I've been shown that are horrific things to come, to be able to put them in context so that they don't scare me because they are that bad. However, the flip side of that is that for the degree of darkness that will be, there will also be that degree of lightness and then some. In order for us to be prepared as a people on whatever side of the veil we are on, for this earth to then be cleansed, to then receive the paradisical glory that it is meant to have in the distant future, there's a process that we have to go through. And it's a growth process, and it's part of the eternal process. And the Lord, Father in heaven, does not, has not, and will not ask us to go through anything he himself has not already gone through. And so that's why he is able to sit back and say, this is what we need to do here. And he doesn't get all panicky and freaked out. In fact, he has the opposite experience. And he has the foreknowledge to know, okay, here's the strategy that we're going to use. And the other thing is that Just because we have a knowledge does not need, we don't need to be giving our war plans to the enemy.
Right. Right.
Meaning, just because I might know something doesn't mean I need to go around telling the world what I know. And the Lord is very much the same. Just because he's not shouting it from the rooftops does not mean he does not know. It's absolutely the opposite. He is a master strategist, and he knows his enemy well.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
Yeah. And those that are shooting it from the rooftops, as far as like, hey, trust me with the government, or don't worry, or whatever.
You don't need anyone else.
And I don't know if we talked about this, I can't remember, but see, these conspiracy theories, they're all crazy. Well, see, where's that coming from? That's coming from those who are conspiring men and women who are taking their orders from Satan passed down from Cain, those same oaths that were from the contracts that were made long ago, and they've passed that down, and they're doing all kinds of stuff there, and they're getting their directives from the puppet master. And when that plan fails, then they hurry and try to come up with another one. And you see that all the time going on in government, right? They lie to you, and then you're like, how could you be so stupid to think we're going to believe it? But a fair number of people do.
Right.
Until they're caught in their lies, and then some people wake up. But there's still all those people that will still believe it. And that's kind of what the dark side banks on. They're like, well, we're not going to get all of them, but let's get as many as we can. What they refuse to believe, because of how deceived they are, and everything that goes into that, is that ultimately at the end of the day, on some level, some that are of higher knowledge and authority understand this. They just won't admit it, and they definitely don't want the lowers to know. Those days are numbered, and they're not. At the end of the day, they're left with nothing. We see it in our world all the time. How many times do you have a political leader? He's put into office, and then somebody comes in and discredits him, and he's taken out, and somebody else replaces him.
Right.
And then they do the same thing to the next guy, and they put the next one in.
Or they sell a piece of themselves. Or whatever they're doing in Congress, or whatever they're doing in office. And it's infiltrated every level of every government worldwide, and in every one of our institutions that we're talking about. Right.
In everything.
Right.
We're talking about churches, we're talking about schools, we're talking about city governments, national governments, world governments, UN, all of it. They're infiltrated. They've been infiltrated. And it's just kind of become more on a mass scale because we're in a global society now, where maybe before it was contained more in Europe and China, and you could separate it. Now we're in a global society, and it's become a global epidemic, really. Right? And so, but that's all part of the plan too, and so, this is a touchy topic I need to be careful about when you're talking about leaders of countries. Well, one of the biggest lies that anybody who's on the adversary's side will use is we got your back. No, you don't. I'm going to use you and abuse you as long as I need you, and when I'm done with you, I'm going to discard of you.
Right.
Yeah, the devil never rewards his own.
Yeah,
that's true.
In fact, I'll do whatever I have to do to seek my own power and glory, and if that means that I have to completely destroy you, well, so be it. In fact, I'll glory in it. And so they'll put their puppets in, and then the puppet master will switch somebody out. And when they're done with this current leadership, and you see that in the scriptures, there's patterns. They're all throughout the scriptures.
It's true.
Of, and they'll use, the enemy will use anybody they can. Right. It doesn't matter if it's your father, your brother, your mom, your uncle. Often those are the ones that are utilized more effectively because they're the ones that can penetrate our hearts and hurt us more. Or they will, catch you off guard with somebody that you'd never suspect, somebody that you thought was a really good friend, and the next thing you know, they're the one that's on the attack. And so we just, we don't want to be paranoid, but we need to be aware that who we put our faith and trust in is Father.
Right.
And it's about faith and trust in Him, because at the end of the day, we will be left with nothing to save our lives. And this is how, at least in my situation, what I see and what I've been told is for me to be able to endure the trials that are coming, both spiritually and physically speaking. At some point in time, there will come a point in time where I will be left with basically nothing, except for my faith and trust in the Lord. And that no amount of preparation is going to keep that from happening.
Physical preparation.
Right. Physical preparation. So but at the same time, there's accountability where I still have to do everything I can physically, and then the Lord comes in and takes care of the rest. That's when miracles will happen, like food showing up. It's been 2 days, and people are panicking because they have no water and no food, and they're on the brink of starvation. And then miraculously, food shows up. Angelic beings, translated beings, angels. How does it get there? All of the above. I don't know. Manna. Why in the Bible do we hear about the story of Moses in the wilderness for 40 years and manna being provided?
There's a reason we're told these stories, in other words.
Right. Why is there a pattern in the scriptures? The Lord gathers his people out. He gives opportunity for his righteous followers to be gathered out before the destructions come. Those that listen are provided safety. Those that don't, they reap the consequences of whatever that choice is. It will be no different. It's no different now in the world we live in. As we are preparing today, we will be prepared for tomorrow, because as we are living our lives in the present for how we're supposed to be living, that is what prepares us for what's coming. We don't want to get caught in the past. We don't want to get stuck in just living today and the eat, drink, and be merry, so that we don't think about the future and we block it out.
Yeah, because our government, everybody tells us right now, times are great. You have nothing to worry about. Everything's great right now.
And it's all a facade.
Right.
It's a distraction technique. So there's a fine balance, and I struggle with it every single day, particularly since I woke up in September of 2004. And that is, how do I make sense of my past, not live in it, but utilize it to live in the present so that I can be where I need to be in the future? So that I can be who I'm supposed to be in the future, whatever that is, whoever that is, and not getting stuck in the muck. Because in the meantime, we still have to live life. We still have to put food on the table. We still have to deal with health issues and family issues and all the different trials that we're dealing with in living in mortality.
Right.
Knowing that there's a greater tomorrow coming.
That's great. It's perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that you did this. I'm so glad we did the after show. Aren't you, Dave? I'm
Amazing.
so glad we did this.
Really, really good.
And,
thank you very much for the insights.
Yeah, I really appreciate you.
Is there anything else? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, am I done here?
I know. I'm thinking too, because I'm thinking if there was any last questions. Do you have any last questions?
I do need to say something about St. George.
St. George, yes, please.
I have questions, but they're technical questions.
Okay.
And
something about St. George, and I've gone to different parts of the country, and then but there's a different feeling here in St. George, and not just St. George, but the greater area. And what was given to me is there's a different kind of energy, a sacredness, different parts of the planet. And so since I'm in St. George here today, and a lot of your listening audience in St. George, is what I've seen is there's historical significance from the past, in the present, and the future of St. George area, and the roles that those who are living here will play. And you're talking about the question somebody said about our ancestors.
That comes into play.
And when I talk about past, I'm talking about, I see ancient civilizations that used to live here in the Americas in the St. George area, and some of the blessings that were promised them, or that they are waiting for, and how excited they are about the people who are living here now and the role they're going to play to help bring that to pass. I also see the Native Americans that are throughout this area and other areas, and the role that they will play going forward, as we're talking about the return of the lost tribes, bringing forth scriptures and other things that will testify of Christ prior to and when the Lord comes again. And all of that goes into, going into the years of tribulations, towards the end of the tribulations, when the 144,000 are sent out, preparatory to all of that, and going in, I talk a little bit about in the book of cities of light and building up places of refuge and cities of light.
And you saw tent cities here.
And tent cities. So there's cities of light, places of refuge, and I go into the books a little bit about that, so it won't take a lot of time. Right. There is a difference. But yes, tent cities. They're all over the world, but
and natural disaster happens here, I'm sure.
Yes, there are, but there are some protected areas here.
Right.
And when the foreign troops come in, especially, I saw a lot of people from California and Arizona and Nevada, Las Vegas area, coming into the St. George area. So much so that those foreign troops, they really try to cut off that I-15. It's a critical pass to be able to keep people from being able to get to safety.
Right.
And because they start on the coast and eventually go inland. The other thing, and I am supposed to mention, I don't want people to get afraid of this, is that I talk about foreign troops that will come on our soil. Guys, they're already here. They're already here. There are cells all over the country, and they're just waiting for their cue.
Wow.
And we don't need to be afraid of that. We need to be aware of that.
Okay, because that's interesting, because we've had calls where people have called into the show and they've said, I saw a whole group of
Russians.
Foreign
I saw him. I
foreigners.
talked to him.
Yeah, he talked to him. And everybody's been wondering why these groups are over here and what they're doing. And, and I think people think, well, they're just here temporarily. Maybe they're doing some training. We don't know, but they
are doing training.
Yeah, it's just not.
They're getting to know our land.
It's just
and our ways.
Yeah, it's just not in our favor, which has been very interesting because we've had several calls like that, and like you said, Dave's talked to him.
And then you go into thing, we could go into the whole chip thing, and gosh, when I was shown that, and to this day, actually, I've never done any research on the chip.
I just did a story on it.
I've never done any research on the chip. The only thing I've read was about 2 weeks ago after I had that last show with you.
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe I should actually read if anybody's really developing these chips.
And
yet.
they are.
I knew they were because the Spirit had told me that. Right. And I knew where we are in the timeline. So I was like, oh, wait, yeah, they're out. But it's not like I'd ever read it anywhere, right?
Oh, I
got on there and I was like, oh, there's a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A company was doing it, or a government situation, I think over in Switzerland, somebody over there was doing it and implementing it and saying, isn't this great for the ease? Because the employees could come in with the chip. They could just come in the doors. They could pay for everything with the cafeteria and then leave. Yeah, and it was
That's another tactic, right?
Right.
Let's do the easy way out. Okay, for the original plan, again, going back to the premortal realm was, guys, don't do it the hard way where you have to have agency and utilize the atonement and run the risk of not making it back.
Right.
Do it my way. This is the easy way.
Well,
I'll make it happen for you. I'll take care of you. Well, the lie is with the chip, right?
Right.
Here, look how easy it's going to be.
You don't even have to turn the knob.
Right. You can keep track of your kids because this is a dangerous world and all these things. What they're not telling you is the real plan is down the road. If you refuse to get the chip, when we decide to stop bringing food in, you're not going to eat. And then the step after that is when you don't decide to then give into that or to be compliant, well, then we're going to also, somewhere along those lines, we're going to separate you and your families. We'll promise you a chance to work, but you're going to have to get the chip or whatever. It's going to come in phases. And they'll separate you like they did in World War II in the concentration camps. And then they'll say, take it to the next level, and they'll say, okay, now we've got them there, and we've got so much control and fear over them now, they're going to say, all right, well, the reality is unless you deny Christ, you're going to be executed. That's where they're headed. That's the big lie. But they're not going to come in and say, hey, guys, guess what we're doing?
Right.
We'd like to depopulize the United States because if we have less people, it's fewer people we have to worry about and control.
Got to come in phases.
Right. So
to digest it and go along with it.
And then there's going to be people that go, she's nuts. That Julie Rowe's crazy. She is a conspiracy theorist. You know what I will tell you? Is I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But there are conspiring men and women. There are some theories out there, and then there are some real conspiracies. The craziest of the crazy ones are the ones that they want us to believe are so outlandish that they couldn't actually happen. But if you read between the lines, if you're trying to get right with the Lord, the Spirit can say, this part of it's true, this other one's a distraction technique.
It's a great point. Wow.
So.
Anything else you'd like to share, Julie?
Just that I do know the Lord has a plan, and Father in heaven loves us very, very much, and our older brother, Jesus Christ, loves us. They have a plan. We can't be afraid. We need to trust in them.
We have a purpose.
We have a purpose. We have a divine purpose. And no matter what we've been through, no matter what we've done, no matter where we think we're going, don't limit the Lord. And don't limit ourselves. Because many of us will be surprised at what we can do when we're called upon to act. And it is time for us to rally the troops. It is time for us to gather together and say, hey, we're not messing around. This is serious business.
Right.
And I've already picked who my master is. And I know who my master is, and that's who I'm going to follow. And then put those who are not on that team in their place. And we don't ask for opposition. We don't call them out. We don't do that. See, that's the other thing. We can lead into the politics, right? The Lord's strategy is you don't go looking for a war. You can defend your faith. You can defend your freedom. You can defend your family. In fact, that's eternal. That's of the light. That's what we should be doing. But whether we're talking about the United States becoming a warmongering country and going all over the world, we do not seek out war. We do not seek out war. And whether we're talking about in this realm or the other.
Right.
But the reality of the matter is that we have been on the attack. We are on the attack, and we need to be alert and make sure that we are where we need to be so that we can be who we need to be, so that we can do what we need to do to defend our faith, defend our family, and defend our freedoms. And that when the time comes that it really is right for us to rise up and defend this Constitution, that we will do it.
Thank you, Julie Rowe.
Thanks.
A greater tomorrow, and the time is now. Thank you, Dave.
Sounds great.
Yep, thank you.